Hello, this is Hugh. I thought I'd show you how this track was put together, how it was made, how I made all these sounds, and what I was thinking when I was making them, and my thought process behind it. And yeah, just getting into the very nitty gritty and technical detail of basically everything that's going on here with this modular system and all this setup. Um, Okay, to start off with, I really don't have the time to record this properly, so I'm just going to do it with my phone. So yeah, hope you can forgive the terrible audio quality. Yeah, so here we go. All right, we'll start off with where I started, which was I kind of just wanted to slice up some break beats because it's fun and muck around with that and do something with the 2HP loop. And I really like that kind of sound of like little guitar loops, like not licks, not riffs, just little string sounds, making pinging, repeating kind of noises that go in and out of timing slightly, that kind of thing. So I was kind of starting there with no real, I guess, like artistic vision in mind other than to do something cool with these two kind of methods of making sounds. So I guess where I started, I actually forget where I started. I created a whole entire different track, which I then scrapped because with the 2HP loop, there is the danger that you make a loop and then you go, this is good, and then you hear it too many times. And you go, maybe I can improve on it, and then you ruin it. And then you start a new loop and it sounds better. And so you just keep going through that process. And I sort of did that a little bit like a procrastinating idiot, and it's actually enjoyable, but also it's good to finish things. So I ended up, I forget which loop it was on in here. All the loops are being held on the Bitbox sampler, which has been triggered by the microbrute. No, not the microbrute. Sorry, the BeatStep Pro. Still an Arturio product. So let's just hear these guitar loops that I made. Not that. There's that. 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 Nothing on that pad. That. And that. And I'll just mute the drum channel sounds. And we'll just hear those by themselves. All together. Okay, wrong thing. So there it is. That's kind of our soup of guitar texture made through the 2HP loop. And there's two channels of it. One you can fade in and fade out because I've only got one mixer and I was using that for something else, which we'll get to later. So there we go, you can fade that in and fade out. And also there's two channels and both channels are going into a filter each in the Bafako Southern Key filter, which is a really good filter and I use it on anything. You hear that? Lovely. Absolutely lovely. Yeah, so that's the guitar loops. And then I guess we'll go into the drums now because that's the next place I went. Okay, cool. Stop that. Okay, so with the drums, it's a collection of stuff on the vocal sample, which we'll talk about in this, and a sliced break beat, which has been sequenced with the BeatStep Pro in the Bitbox, which is a sampler, which is what I use to hold all my samples. So I'll play the full breakbeat. So let's just zoom out and adjust the starting position of this, and you can hear it in. So there, a nice funk break, probably from some 70s record. I found this, I'm pretty sure, on a YouTube video of, 10 classic breaks or something like that. I couldn't tell you which record it comes from. Yeah, that's a good resource. YouTube is an amazing resource to find breakbeats. And the good thing about them is, even if you've heard them a million times before, like the Amen break, they still sound really fucking good. So yeah. And I'll show you how this is spliced up. So first we have a kick drum, which isn't very bass heavy, but we'll get into how we filled out that gap in the frequency spectrum later on. And it's got like a little bit of stuff at the end of it. Sounds like some shuffling snares, maybe a little bit of hi-hat. Same thing with this next bass drum. That's a bass drum with a little hi-hat and snare at the end of it. That's a bass drum with some other stuff at the end of it. Sounds like a snare roll and a hi-hat. And here we have a snare drum with a little shuffle at the end of it, which sounds pretty cool, especially if you do this. Yeah, so there's that, and then there's this, which is pretty much the same thing from another part of the breakbeat. If you're working with breaks, it's a good idea to kind of like pick the strongest snare and the strongest kick, but also it's a good idea to pick like different slices, different sections, if you have the the stuff to do that with, I guess. And that's a snare roll with a kick drum at the start of it. That's the little shuffling sound. To my ears, it sounds like a snare drum being played pretty light. And that's just another snare drum. Sounds nice and tight, actually. Nice and gated. Nice sound. So yeah, that's the drums, and together they sound like this. There's a few different versions of that. And it's going through the Korg Chaos Pad Pro. And mainly I'm just playing with the looper. Which should be there. Nice. Yeah, you can have a lot of fun with that. And also at certain sections of the track, I just sort of use the low pass filter as well. So that's the drums. Okay, pretty much from the get-go, I had a nice booming 808 bass sound in there, which is coming from my kick 808 kick module here. And eventually it got sort of phased out because I ended up having a nice big booming bass line in there. So obviously they were clashing, and I decided to just go for just the transient, just the click. And it's about here. You just get the click no matter where the pitch is on this one. And I think that's the same across the spectrum with 808 bass drums, I'm pretty sure. And it's been mixed through this wee mixer down here, the Pico mixer, with two drum sounds from my two Peaks modules. Mutable Instruments Peaks. These are not made by Mutable Instruments, these are clones. And this one even has CV control, which I would like to use more of, but I barely ever get around to doing. And I'll show you what these sound like. The first one is this. Instead of at the start of the song, like have the decay sort of very short, and eventually it sort of opens up. And it's about here in the mix actually, like around here. So it's not too crazy. And there's a second sound in there which slowly comes in. That, which makes this nice chord. And I couldn't tell you the musical term for that. Duode, I think it's called. And also that opens up with its decay as well. So it starts maybe about here, and then it goes do 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 do. Let's not get too carried away. So that's one of the other elements of this track. What next? All right, we should talk about the Volca. We should talk about the Volca sample. Um, the Volca sample is a really cool little unit, and I don't really use it in these jams, and I might start using it a bit more. But I've uploaded like a nice sample pack to the Volca sample, which consists of bit crushed guitar sounds and some textural noises and some a few breakbeat sounds and some noises I made with the peaks modules, um, and also some really lovely sounding 80s drum rompler sounds. These like really crisp, kind of corny, but in a good way sounds. And I'll show you them now. Rimshot, cowbell, really cheesy sounding cowbell. Yeah, another rimshot, a snare, a breakbeat. I'm not sure if I used that or not. And we also have some vocal samples that I used.
Seven. Hard.
Seven, hard. You said hard.
Captain.
And captain.
Rain, rain, rain.
And these are just words that I chopped from random vocal samples in my sample library. Yeah, and I guess I'll just play this. Get rid of the peaks. And the idea was just to program this at the start of the track. So those are, I believe, Yamaha RX-11 sounds. I used to actually have a Yamaha RX-11, and I literally traded it with a guy for a Digitech drum or Digitech grunge pedal, which guitarists sneeze at. I think it sounds wicked, but yeah, I think that guy got the better deal. His band is called Edith Lane, and go check them out because they're a shoegaze band if you like that kind of thing. And I'm not sure if he uses the RX-11 or not. Yeah, so the idea was just to program these at the start of the song, and so the patch gets more and more complex as the song goes on, at least within the first minute. And moving on to the bass line, which, funnily enough, wasn't a complete afterthought, which is how I usually approach bass lines, if we're being honest. And I'll just play this now. So this is a sine wave coming from my Z3000 oscillator, and it's just going straight to the VCA, which is being controlled by this envelope here, the Behringer 140. I'd recommend these. I'd recommend them more if they were smaller as well. They could always be smaller. Yeah, so this bass line has a few reiterations, or iterations even. They might be too loud for this to even pick up. Nice and deep. When making this, I could sort of hear things in the room shaking, like something in that cupboard over there was shaking. Yeah, interesting. Just because it was so low. And yeah, there's this bit as well. And this is the reason why I got rid of the 808 bass sound, because it sort of takes up the same space in the frequency spectrum. Just something really basic. Yeah. So that's the bass line. So let's move on to the kind of the quote-unquote lead synth sound, or the arpeggiated synth sound. It's not arpeggiated. You know what I'm saying. Let's unmute that. Yeah, calm your phone. Yeah, boy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So this is starts with the oscillator, the Behringer 112. It's a square wave. It's got a bit of modulation going on in the pulse width. Which is coming from this here, LFO. Nice. Yeah, there we go. And it's being controlled, obviously, by the beat step. And the CV from that is going into a glide module, or a vento glide, whatever you want to call it. The gate is going into our Behringer 140 envelope. Pretty obnoxious, really. Okay, let's tone down that. And that's going through some effects. It's going through this. El Cuvave. Cheap $40 reverb pedal. And digital delay. Also $40 on eBay. I'm not gonna lie, it's good for $40. It's good in general, really. And throughout the course of this, I sort of changed the step length, so this sequence goes for 16 beats, but sometimes it's 6. Sometimes it's 12. And sometimes I change the time division of it as well, so go like that. Yeah, maybe we don't do that. Turn steps on and off. Maybe we make it go nice and slow. Oh yeah, it's also going through this filter, which is not a filter I'd recommend if we're being frank. That actually sounds kind of nice. Give it some delay. I think that pretty much concludes this program. I hope you enjoyed it. I guess as Todd Smith would say, yeah, share the love with each other. Do jams, make epic shit.